The scariest thing to ever do is to walk away from a paycheck, a regular paycheck where you know you're going to get it every 2 weeks or every month or whatever.
This is the Pass the Pitch podcast with Anna Frazzetto. Each episode, we sit down with bold thinkers and industry trailblazers to uncover the strategies, stories, and sparks of inspiration that drive growth and transformation. Let's get started.
Well, here we are on a Friday afternoon at Pass the Pitch, and I'm excited to have Ray Culver with me as my guest. So, Ray, quick introduction for the audience. You have been a staffing industry veteran, and you're also a certified contingent workforce professional with 30 years of experience. It's amazing that you even admit that you have 30 years of experience in sales and sales strategy, sales leadership. Also, prior to launching your consulting and advisory firm, you held leadership roles in some of the major organizations like Scout Exchange, Ronstadt, Manpower Group, and you were also very instrumental in creating and leading national and global MSP sales channels, which is definitely a big focus in the industry, especially today. And last but not least, Culver, I love talking about that. You are a managing director for Talent Partners, a UK-based talent insights and research organization. And also, not to mention the multiple nonprofit organizations. So welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate you giving me time.
Excellent. So, okay, Ray, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to jump right in. I always like to talk a little bit about, like leadership. And I mean, leadership is such a journey, and it really is a different journey for all of us. But what would you say is the best business decision you almost did make, and what pushed you over the edge?
Yeah, I think I'm going to break the rules early on. I'm going to give you two. So we'll talk through two.
Okay.
The first one was probably the first one that I ever had to make in my career. When I left university, my mother was in staffing. So my mother was with Ronstadt early on when they very first bought their first company in the US. So as I was leaving university, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. And so her boss came to me and said, "Ray, what are you going to do?" And I'm like, "I have no idea." Clueless. And he's like, "We'll come to work for Ronstadt." And I didn't do that. I almost didn't take that position, which would have completely changed the course of my career. So I'm happy that worked out the way it did. And the way I got to that was really through conversations with my mom. So again, I kind of said mother is the reason why I'm in this industry, this crazy industry that we're in.
That's great.
The second one, the more relevant one, closer to time, is starting my own consulting firm. That was, and I think any consultant you talk to who's going out on their own and who has stuck with it would tell you that that's probably the scariest thing to ever do is to walk away from a paycheck, a regular paycheck where you know you're going to get it every 2 weeks or every month or whatever. But so that is turned out to be probably the best decision I, have ever made in my entire career as far as what it's allowed me to do, the folks it's allowed me to interact with, people like you to get to meet you. I think we met on that journey. So yeah, that would be the biggest one.
I love that, Ray. And first of all, I mean, I could relate, for firsthand, when I decided to start AFM Strategic Partners, same thing. And isn't it amazing that when you take that giant step, right, in your career, that you actually, as I've been doing this now for a little bit, I regret that I didn't start earlier. Like, why didn't I do it sooner in my career? And I'm not sure what the factors are. Like, it's always obviously the comfort of getting that steady paycheck clearly has a lot to do with it. But yeah, wish I would have done it earlier. How do you feel? Do you feel like you wish you would have done it earlier?
There are certain aspects that say yes, just because of kind of the freedom that it gives you and just what it opens so many doors that you can do so many different things. But I think for me, I am very happy with my journey of working for companies like Randstad, like Manpower Group, because I think it taught me so much about me. It taught me so much about leadership. It taught me, I think, how to be a good leader. And it also taught me what I don't want to ever go back and do again. Yeah, unless I absolutely had to, I really was going to go back in that direction again.
Right. Yeah. No, and I agree with that. It definitely helps create that foundation, right? That building blocks that then you have more of a solid footing when you're creating your own business. Uh, let's talk a little bit about, sales characteristics and traits, and what's one underrated skill or trait. There are more people in sales, or even I would even broaden it to leadership, should master.
Yeah, I think, the one, and you hear a lot of people talk about this, but just is empathy, being able to be really empathetic and listening to, even if you're in sales and you're talking to a client, understand where they're coming from, understand their feelings and that type of thing. I am all about building a sales team and building sales around a relationship. Like, I mean, within staffing, you're not necessarily selling a widget. So you really are building a relationship. You're building trust with people that they can trust you to send, the talent that they need, things like that. So really being able to get to that level of being very empathetic, understanding that. And then from a leadership perspective, I think that's key. I mean, to be able to really listen to your team and understand where they're coming from and how they feel and that type of thing. Too many leaders these days do not do that. And they do not even take that into consideration. And I think that's a huge mess.
And you're so right. And actually, in a lot of the conversations that I have with, with a lot of my clients, that's one of the things that we talk about. How do you shift those conversations? There's so much pressure on companies to make their numbers, achieve their goals and their targets, that they forget like the human component of it. And you got to make sure your team is okay.
Yeah, you really do. I mean, I think, again, good leadership is constantly going back to your team to check in and, make sure that they are feeling okay and that they understand, the end goal and how we're going to get there. And we're going to get there together. Throughout my leadership career, when I had larger teams, it was always like, okay, let's come together. Let's talk about what we know the end goal is. Let's talk about how we each think we can get there. Because that way, whenever we come up with a solution, we've all bought into it. This isn't Ray telling you what's going to happen. This is us as a team figuring out how we're going to make this happen together. We've all had input. We've all bought into it. So it's like, okay, at the end of it, huddle break, we're ready to go. And that just led to better outcomes because everybody felt like they had a voice.
Right, right. Good point. Okay, so how do you keep your team motivated when results aren't coming as fast as expected?
I do think that you have to keep the team engaged and energized. I mean, I think you kind of have to keep their eye on the end goal. Um, in today's staffing world and recruiting, it's taking longer to get things across the line. I mean, that's just the contracts. It's just taking longer. Get people placements. It's taking longer. Figuring out a way to keep the team, I think, energized is the biggest thing. Like, don't let them get down on, okay, well, this isn't happening fast enough. We have to feel like the industry, none of it's happening fast enough. We just got to figure out how do we make it happen as quick as we can, but also what do we do with time that we have, in between, like sending, let's say, a resume or whatever and getting the placement. How do we take advantage of that time and use it wisely? So keeping them engaged, keeping them busy. Again, don't too much time to think, I think, can create bad situations. Yeah, that would be, I mean, again, if you have a goal, you work together to figure out how you're going to get there, and then everybody stays very engaged and part of the process. You're never letting someone kind of slip to the back. Everybody is constantly moving forward as a team, as a team, as a team. And I also think from a recruiting and staffing perspective, those teams help to lift each other up. That's a huge piece of our business.
Right, right. Yeah, and I like what you said about, like, moving forward. And it's almost like not wallowing in what's not going in the direction you would want it to go into. The other thing is, I know a habit that I like to get into is like celebrate the small victories, right? So, for example, the victory might not be a new, contractor on billing, but the victory could be, a difficult meeting that you finally, were able to set up. The client responded when you had been waiting for them to respond. So, like, celebrate the small victories so that there's some positive energy around the workload.
And really, and celebrate the small victories of the team with the team. You know what I mean? Like, again, let the team keep each other picked up because, right, that in sales, and gosh, dang, you've heard this as well as I have forever. In sales, you're as good as what happened yesterday, sadly, but it's true. So ride those, you know what I mean? Like really figure out how to take the wins, whether they're small or large, and just ride that wave for a while. Because sales, it doesn't happen every day, typically. So you have to figure out how to stay energized with what you do. So I love that as well.
Right, right. No, that's good. Okay. So, what do you think would be one mindset shift that unlocked new growth for you or your team?
I think younger in my career, you look at other people and you compare yourself to them, and you look at other leaders and you compare yourself to them. And you're like, okay, well, I should be there, or I should be ahead, or I should be this, I should be that. I think getting to the point in your career, and also just getting to the point, and maybe just you at an age where it's like, you know what, I don't have to do that. Like I have been extremely successful. I have ran at the levels that I needed to run at, and I am doing just fine. So just really being okay with yourself, understanding that where you're at in your career, it's okay. You don't have to compare yourself to other people. I think salespeople do that a lot, and some of that is the competition, and some of that I think is healthy, kind of wanting to do better than maybe your peer. But at the end of the day, be happy with what you've done, be happy with your successes. That was a huge mind shift for me, was to basically say, you know what, I don't have to compare myself to anybody else. I am I'm extremely good at what I do. I don't have to do that anymore.
Right. And you know what I like about that is that I do think early on in your career, when you compare yourself to others, if it's a like training opportunity, then it's great, right? Because you're enhancing your skills. And so you admire people around you and say, I want to be able to, analyze a deal the way, Sue does it in that department. So I want to understand like how does she go about, or I want to be able to, build spreadsheets like Joe does. So I want to learn like the skills that he has. But you're right. In life, as you get more seasoned, more mature, more experience, there should be less comparison because then it turns into negativity, right?
Yeah.
Because then it turns into like, well, why can't I, have that, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it definitely works against you. Actually, I read an interesting quote this morning in my gratitude journal. It has a quote that you start the day with, and it had this very message where it says, "The less time you spend comparing yourself to others means the more satisfied you are with yourself," which is exactly what you just said.
Yeah, 100%. And again, I just think that that's maybe that's the part of the secret to happiness. Just being happy with where you're at and what you have, and uh, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think. So, yeah,
Right.
that's cool. What a the perfect day. You got that quote, and here we are talking. Oh
Well, no, I
gosh,
know that worked really well. I'm a big fan of the
universe.
5 minute, yeah, the 5 minute journal. But you're right, the universe is talking to both of us. Okay, so tell me about a time when a seemingly small cultural detail made a big impact on a deal, or even hiring someone, or a business decision.
I think probably the hiring someone. When we talk about cultural, I take myself back to like Manpower Group, because when you're in a company that big, and again, this because you've been in large organizations like that, global, there's just certain cultural things that you have to kind of think through. A lot of it, you know, the office culture and the work culture, and will these people fit in and that type of thing. And I remember there was a team member who I was potentially going to be hiring, and it's one of those where Did I think that they would fit in perfectly into the culture? No. But did I think that they could bring so much to the team? Yes. So it's one of those where you weigh the decision to think, okay, we're gonna have to work on this side, but this side's gonna be so great. I'm happy that I made the hire because it turned out absolutely incredible. And that person actually, I don't say surprised me, but I mean really did a great job of fitting into the culture and really becoming a part of the team. And that was probably one of the best hires I ever made. So it's one of those where you have hesitation in the beginning because you think, okay, this isn't quite a fit. And at the end, probably the best person I've hired in my entire career.
Isn't that amazing? I'm also a big fan of, which is not scientific at all, but when you're going to hire people to ultimately follow your gut, right? So, and that's what you did, even though you're saying, not sure, but you follow your gut and you wind up making the hire, and then you were completely pleased with the results. Yeah, there's something about how you connect with people, especially with salespeople. If you're building out the sales organization, there's so much that you can do as far as, behavioral interviewing, emotional interviewing. There's all different techniques, but at the end of the day, it's what your gut is telling you about the person, if they could do the job or not.
And when to your point, is again, in larger organizations, there are so many of those assessments and, they have to go through this assessment and that assessment and you get these results back and you're like, you know what, I've done this for probably at that point, I've done this for 20 plus years. And so you start to hedge against, okay, this assessment, it doesn't, my gut is more important to me than what this assessment is telling me. So you kind of go to bat for this person because, in situations like that, you kind of have to push back and say, okay, I see what this is telling me. And I know we shouldn't do this according to corporate policy, but I want to do it anyways. So you're kind of putting some of your capital on the line. So when it does work out, you're like, "Oh, but yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, thank gosh that worked out."
Well, that's great. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit of fun, Ray. I'm gonna do some. Yeah, I know, the famous last words here. We're gonna do some fun rapid fire questions, and just say the first thing that comes to your mind. What's the weirdest email subject line you've ever received or sent?
Gosh, with all of this whole sequencing thing and all these things, all these emails these days that are going out that you're one of thousands of emails that are going out. The ones where they will say to catch your attention the wrong name or just something that is completely part of the sequence. So it's just meant to be cheeky and just meant to be fun. That's one that is just, I don't know that it's funny or interesting. It's just to be weird. That's delete. So if anyone's watching this with those sequences, delete, 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 delete. The other one would be, I remember there was something around, and I think it was from a company who made clothing, so like men's dress clothing. But it says something like, are you wearing pants? I just remember seeing that, and I'm like, why in God's name am I getting an email from someone asking am I wearing pants? It turned out to be, again, a clothier. So it's cute. It's kitschy. But I was just like, why does this email ask me if I have my pants on?
Well, it got you to open the email.
It did. Yeah, I kept that one. I actually read that one. The other one, again, about, are you such and such? It's delete.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, that is that is two good examples. Okay, if your sales pitch had a theme song, what would it be?
I don't know that I can tell you an exact song, but it would have to be something around just like, happy and dancing and things like that. Because anyone you ask, and I think you and I've known each other for a while, I try and be extremely positive and happy and, what can I do to help you today? And just, happy Monday and happy this and happy that. So I think it would be something around that, just to be like, from a sales perspective, be upbeat, be happy, be authentic. Like, really just have fun with what you're doing and enjoy your job, enjoy what it is you're doing because we spend so much time doing our jobs. You really should love it. So that's my thing.
So actually, there is a song by Pharrell Williams that's called "Happy." So yeah, that'd be perfect. I think you got your song there.
There we go. Next time I see you, I'm going to play the song and I'll walk up.
Exactly. That should be your walk-up song.
There you go.
If you had to give yourself a completely ridiculous job title based on what you actually do all day, what would it be?
Lately, it's been chief traveler, because I feel like I had been all over the place
You really
lately.
have. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to be home for 2 weeks. It's something stupid like chief talker. I mean, like, you do the same things. I feel like we're on, whether you're in person, at least when you're in person, you're getting to interact with people, but you're on camera all day. Like, it starts at 7 and goes to like 5, and we love it because obviously we do it, and we're people who love sales and that type of thing, but it's just constant talking. So chief talker. At the end of the day, and I don't know if you ever feel like this, but you have so many, calls back to back to back and so many great calls. But then in the day, you almost have to look at your notes to go back and be like, what exactly did I do today? Because you just had so many conversations, like one after the other, that you
Mm.
have to go back and look to see what exactly you talked about.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And thank God for note takers
Yes.
that can kind of keep track because yeah, especially when you support multiple clients, you start feeling like, oh my goodness, what's going on with A versus B kind of thing. If you had to describe your career as a type of food, what would it be and why?
Maybe I could tie mine back to the whole happy thing, and I could be pizza because you really can't eat pizza and not be happy. There
Well,
you go.
there you go. You got it.
Drop the mic.
And listen, Ray, I'll tell you, we could talk forever. Thank you so much for being on the show, and this has been tremendous fun and great pleasure having you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the time. It's always good to get to spend time with you and to see that smile. So thank you again.
Thank you for listening to the Pass the Pitch podcast with Anna Frazzetto. Don't forget to subscribe and share. In our next episode, we talk to Winnie Njaga on being intentional and authentic without being unfiltered. See you then.